Good morning and welcome to Frank's School, 6th year, 137th day, first video. Just say no. Degrow building. Second video I'm going to devote to that. Now the first one was 17 minutes long almost. I went on. I'll try to not go on quite so long, but this does look like a good bit. I'll just try to be brief about each item. It was long. I was pretty clearly impassioned. Now and then that happens. I care inordinately about what I'm saying about. All right, the resale value. When I was talking about that unholy alliance, well, that's part of it all too. When a bank is going to loan money, they want to make sure that whatever you build can be resold. There have to be other people out there that regard that as valuable. So there it goes, and right along with it, the aesthetic. That's probably the thing it's one of the things to really tackle. The aesthetic, what looks good in people's eyes, and it can be manipulated. It has been manipulated tremendously by advertising. There's a woman in our church, yesterday was Sunday, and she asked my permission, she's done it twice, to come and photograph where I live. And I said, what? And she says, yeah, it looks so, what's the word she used, quaint or something like that. I'm thinking the pallet fences are all just leaning against each other. They're not even plumb. They don't have the boards on top. And my wife was standing there and she said, do you know where we live? Because she doesn't share my aesthetic, sadly. But anyway, it's the second time she says, no, I want to photograph it because there was snow on the ground. And so the aesthetic matters, and it can be manipulated. I'm still being Jeremiah, really, at the moment, but I'm going to show you that there are options. Now, commercial buildings, they're a little bit different, but they don't have to be. I just don't want to tackle them right now. They're built out of steel, covered with steel. They're really like thin steel tents nowadays in a way, but I just don't want to tackle that. It didn't have to be. Back in the old days, the same kind of building that was used for houses was built, and I'm thinking in terms of, say, German cities of 300 years ago. Now, again, on Sunday, I asked my sister-in-law, actually, who lives closer to this aggressive sewage and water system coming. It may not reach her house, but she was saying, oh, yeah, it's true. You'll be fined if you use your own well. I said, what? And she, she says they'll meter it. They'll be able to tell, because they'll be able to tell how much water goes into your house, how much water comes out of your house. They'll meter the sewage. I was left thinking, what kind of a meter is going to be on a sewage line? I bet that adds some expense. But she thought it may not work there because the grant money may run out. And I'm thinking, grant? Where's that money coming from? From us, I suppose, from taxpayer funds. That is a centralizing grant. That money is being spent to centralize the water system and the sewer system. And I wondered, as a decentralist, maybe I could claim that's religious persecution. I'm being forced to centralize, and it's against my religion, I could say. I don't know. So that it probably will never reach here. She's not so sure it'll reach where she is either. But there's all kinds of rumors and fears that go ahead of such things. A lot of them are probably true. Pole lights, I should have maybe mentioned them. I regard them as pollution. Pole lights, it's sort of the same thing in that rural electrification. It wasn't enough that the lines got there. Then there's this aesthetic that your house has to have a pole light, because of robbers or thieves. Well, that certainly would help a robber or a thief out if he had a pole light there and he could see what he's doing, as opposed to going along with a flashlight, which everyone would see. I'm listing things that are just so wrong. It says pollution. I wrote Barcelona here because there's a movie called, it's a German movie, Weniger ist mehr, Less is More. And it's one of the few movies I know about right now that is presenting degrowth. And I think it was in Barcelona. It might have been, where as a activism, sort of a terrorism, I suppose, people had these, and they were closing the switches. They had long poles and they were flipping the switches off on all the lights through the city at night. Figuring, hey, those lights didn't have to be on from, say, 11 o'clock until 6 in the morning. They were turning them off. They were being just left on. I think that was Barcelona, and Barcelona is worth giving attention to. I should have added that as part of your insurance, before there were insurance companies that pooled money and stuff, your church was also part of that insurance system, along with family and village and friends. And it still comes to play. Now and then you'll have somebody around here, their barn burns down or something burned down, and they don't have insurance. Well, people will help out. You know, I'm sure some people say, well, they should have been paying insurance. I pay my insurance. Well, it's like under conditions of real stress, some of an older, truer morality rises to the surface, I think, sometimes. Now, when I said about building less than 100 square feet and those limitations, in a sense, what you and you have to be an outlaw. What I had found is it's possible to fly under the radar. That's the expression. Now, how low do you have to fly? How small do you have to get before you can actually build something different? I don't know. I've often thought what I'm doing too. Now, I'm keeping all my units small, and they told me too, you can build as many as you want, as long as it's less than 100 square feet. I said, okay, well, good. I got about 25 started or more. But I thought I could also say, well, it's a museum. I don't intend to live there. It's a museum to show how people once did it, or how people could do it. So I wanted to add that. I'm going through and just ticking things off because I'm just kind of adding two things. Paint. I said, no, paint it. Well, paint's fine for paintings. I mean, back in Shakespeare's day, these gorgeous paintings were made. But they're paintings. You know, they're not paint on the side of a house. My grandfather complained when my mom and dad and uncle and aunt decided to paint a building that he just put up. Phew, boy, I remember my dad, I couldn't believe that he was brave enough to do that, getting to the top of this. Oh man, he must have been up there 35 feet on a ladder painting the side of a barn. And I remember my grandpap saying that wood doesn't have to be painted. And he's right, it doesn't have to be painted. Now, I've argued over that some with my German friend Shirley, because, you know, you go to northern Germany and Sweden, they paint everything. Well, you know, she said, well, no, if it's wet enough, it's got to be painted. If the climate's wet enough. Or what about boats? Wouldn't you paint a boat? I don't know. You know, I'm not ready to speak to that. If it has to be painted, I don't know. I maybe shouldn't get into that, but the Vikings didn't paint their boats and they floated. All right, now brick. Brick, I don't know if I mentioned that or not. Brick is used often as a veneer, part of that aesthetic, make a house look like something it's not. You build a house and then stick brick on the outside, just like you would vinyl. Well, if you're going to spend that money on brick, it would be better to put it inside the insulated surface. Then you would have thermal mass. You know, instead of its job to shed water, well, vinyl would shed water. I mean, but it's all that thermal mass could be kept warm. It'd be wonderful. Another thing on the matter of masonry, a batter in retaining walls. This wall is a retaining wall. There's ground on the other side of that wall. It's built plumb, which is the standard way of doing it. And then all this effort to backfill it and drain it and stuff, which is important and good. But you can also build a wall on a batter. In other words, if here's your ground surface, instead of building it plumb, you build the wall into the ground like that, and then here's your house. That's building a wall on a batter. Retaining walls are done like that, and it's a very good way to do. It's done some, but it's not usually done in houses. But I just thought I should maybe mention that. It's a good idea if you're gonna build a house under grade. The mortar, dry stone. I've traveled in Portugal a lot and hope to more, I think. But anyway, there is so much example of stone that's laid without mortar all over the place, including mills, walls, houses, retaining walls. You don't have to have mortar. Now, the ground doesn't freeze hard in Portugal, and that does make a difference. But even so, you don't. The way to combat that is not try to. Well, I said that before. Just let your building float. Flake board. You know, I talked about plywood as much glue as wood. Well, think about flake board. All that wood chipped up, all that work to chip that wood up fine like that, and then glue it. Horrible material. But anyway, you know, it's used universally. If you've got to use a crane to build a building, I have to wonder. You know, they build the trusses in some factory and then ship them there, and then you have this big crane and they set the whole truss down. I mean, if you look at the energy involved in building that crane, getting the crane there, running that crane, everyone stands around while it's being done, and compare that to just men building it in place, you can maybe begin to see the inconsistency. Battery powered tools, people love them right now. I don't like them. There's a place for them, I suppose. But even inside a shop, maybe I should especially, I just soon have a cord if I'm going to have an electric tool, which I do. I mean, a skill saw, electric drill, I use them all the time. Battery powered, I think it's almost a current fashion. They're fine till the battery runs out. and you know, well, you can, out in the field some places where, you know, power won't reach and you don't want to do it by hand, they have a place. But all right, you might say I have a fastener phobia. I thought about that, fastener phobia. Glue, for example. I said, don't glue. Basically, don't build. No, you do whatever you want, I guess. But I hate to build something that can't be taken apart. It's almost in principle. It's part of the building of it is to make sure that it can then be unbuilt with the minimal destruction. For example, nails. Now there's a monster nail. I'm going to be using some of these. That's probably a 50 or 60 penny nail, but I'll end up drilling the hole and using it as a peg. Probably. I'll maybe let the last bit of it bite into wood. It's kind of a special use. That's a 30 penny spike. I'll be using them. It can be drawn. It can be pulled with a crowbar. Now I have we've had quite a bit of discussion, a friend of mine and I, over construction screws. He works with me a lot and he thinks a lot the way I do. Well, he became enamored with construction screws. He says they're just so great. Bzzz, run them in there, want them out, bzzz, take them back out. Yeah, if you've got the drill and the impact and to do that all. And I've come to admit that, well, they have a use here and there. But here's a kind of nail I'm really fond of. These are called, I don't know if you can see that, these are duplex or double-headed nails. They're called duplex or double-headed nails. They probably look pretty funny to some of you if you've never seen them before. Well, one head is for holding it in, the other head is for drawing it out. Sometimes they're called scaffolding nails. I love them. And if I decide I'm never going to pull that out, I just bend it over, flatten the head down, and bend it over. Now there's these specialty nails like ring shank nails. It's got rings going down there like drywall nails. Spiral shank nails, cement coated nails they're called. All of those, if you drive them in, they're not meant to be pulled out. You basically, the only way to separate the nail from the wood is in a fire. Basically, and pallets are virtually always done like that, which is a reason why I really try to avoid tearing pallets apart, even though I have hundreds and hundreds of pallets. I may have 1,000 pallets on this farm, but I use the whole pallet as much as possible, or in the ashes after you've used it for firewood or whatever, you use a magnet or whatever to take those nails out. You could say I have a fastener phobia, and in a way I also have a saw phobia, because with pallets, I try to saw as little as possible. I try to use the whole unit if possible. That's especially true of pallets, because if you saw a pallet apart, you try it with a skill saw, it's dangerous actually, because that wood, if you're not careful, is really liable to grab that saw and jump. Well, you might say it's laziness. Well, that's probably true too. Oh well, I've got other things I'm probably forgetting to say, but I will go on to something else. One thing I will say though is later this week, I think I'm going to do a video, and I'm going to call it wood, where I specifically want to talk about that subject. Bye for now.